About me, well, I am a longtime Colorado resident. I've been living in the state since I was 16 years old when my family moved from Oklahoma to Colorado, to a small town on the western slope called Gunnison. It's very near a ski area called Crested Butte. So for me, that was a fantastic move. It was right in the middle of high school, but I'm very much more of a Colorado boy than an Oklahoma boy. So that was great. And then I stayed in state to go to college. I went to Colorado College in the Springs to study medicine. I got into med school um, in my second attempt, and pretty quickly decided that I didn't think med school was going to be the right choice for me. So I did not end up going. Um, and and went on to pursue some other things. So basically was a copywriter and freelance author at the time, and was working for a bike company, and the graphic artist quit one day, and I was the only person in the building that knew how to turn on the Mac. So I quickly said, hey, well, I think I could do this. And I taught myself graphic design and became a designer, and ran that catalog company's marketing efforts for years. And then kind of went into web design and worked for um, some agencies and .com stuff, and eventually started my own business in 2007 with a buddy of mine, and then we rolled that into Relish Studio, which is my current business, in 2000. And well, that was 2007. Rolled it into Relish Studio in 2008, and the ownership has changed a little bit since then. It's myself and my current business partner Brett, so we've been kind of doing this for about 12 years
Yeah.
now, and it's been really exciting and fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's always a fun roller coaster ride once you embark on once you start saying yes to life, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's funny where things take you. I mean, I spent my entire life thinking I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon, and then decided that wasn't going to be my path. So, just try
Yeah.
new things and do some fun stuff.
So, Stu, something that really stood out for me when I was looking at your profile is you are chasing mediocrity. That's
Yeah.
something that really stood out. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I've always kind of jumped in the deep end on things, and then have pursued them with passion. And when I talk about chasing mediocrity, it's really a response to a lot of the sports stuff that I've done over my lifetime. So I started out, kind of in traditional sports, football and basketball and those kinds of things, and really recognized that I wanted to ride bikes. And so I started racing bikes in the 80s, and it was all consuming. I mean, I was working at a bike shop. I was, so I'd go to work and I'd talk about bikes or write about bikes or do that kind of stuff all day long. And then I would get out of work and I would go train every day or race on the weekends. And so it was just the thing that I did. And I realized back then that I was missing out on some things that I really wanted to do, like climbing and hiking and things of that nature. So of course I started climbing, and then that became all consuming, and I just climbed and climbed and climbed, and I didn't ride my bike and I didn't run, and I just climbed. And then I went back to bike racing for a while, and then I became a runner, and I started running ultra marathons, and that was all consuming. And so when I say I'm embracing mediocrity, is really just I want to be able to do all of the things that I enjoy doing, but not feel like I necessarily have to be the best that even I can be at any one thing. So, if I'm 80% proficient at a bunch of different stuff, and so I can get up off the couch and go run 10 miles or something now, and I'm a lot slower than I was, and that's fine. If I'm just out enjoying it. So just trying to enjoy more things
Yeah.
at the same time than being so entirely focused on one thing.
Yeah, that's awesome because a lot of people get so caught up on the whole hustle mentality that they forgot to the enjoying part of things. And so putting it in that perspective of I just want to enjoy it, really,
Yep.
that's yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And my career's been kind of similar in that
mhm,
I've done a lot of different things. So I've done
mhm,
everything from writing copy to, you know, print design to web design to coding and quality assurance testing and all of this stuff. And at the end of the day, I think as an entrepreneur and a business owner, having some capacity in all of those things is really important, at least in the digital marketing space. Understanding all of that stuff for me in my particular position is what I need to do. But I know that there are other people who are way better at it, at all of those things, than I am, and so I'm really trying to focus on understanding the stuff, but being able to not have a whole lot of ego tied up
mm,
in the fact that I'm no longer the best copywriter or coder or designer out there. So
yeah. Oh, trust me, I see
yeah,
that all the time. People write one email to their list and they're like, it did not convert. I'm like, you wrote one email.
right.
Your first email ever. They're saying it's like, oh, but it's really good. So there's a lot of ego in there. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so how do you integrate purpose and strategy in conversions
Whew,
and
that's a really great question. So purpose to me, and this is an intentional kind of pivot that we made at Relish about 5 years ago now. And both my business partner and I were kind of starting to get a little burned out, and we were starting to feel like we were back working in a job as opposed to working for our own business. And so it's kind of like, I'm not a suit and tie guy, so if it's my business, if I don't want to wear a suit and tie, then I'm not going to wear a
mm,
suit and tie. And likewise, we sort of started saying, well, what are we in this for? Like, what can we do that's bigger than just providing for our families and making a paycheck and doing great work. And so we really started to look at what kind of impact we could make. And that's when we became a 1% for the Planet partner and really started to approach the way that we do business in that capacity, that we can actually do more than just make money. And we can do that for our clients as well. So we can help encourage them to take on a similar ethos. So really just say, look, you can be a better business. You can do this a different way and really make a huge impact in not only your space, but with your team and with your vendors and everybody else. And so we really sort of embraced that purposeful mindset. And then, in terms of purpose, just, one of the things that we see a lot are people who come to us and say, hey, I need a new website. And when we really take a look at what they're doing, they don't need a new website. They just need some intention and some
mm,
purpose with their current site to try to help guide people to to take those actions that they're desirous of them taking. And so that's kind of where that whole cross section lies, I think.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. So did you see for yourself in your journey has being vulnerable about certain things, being more self-expressed, would you say that how would that did you can't find my words. Did you find that that helped you in your journey, being more vulnerable, being more self-expressed?
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, um, if I show up as me and people like me
Mm,
and want to do business with me, then I'm going to be able to do the best. That I'm going to be able to bring that to the table every time.
mm,
Where if I'm hiding and if I'm presenting myself in a way that's not authentic,
mm,
they're not getting the most. So maybe they're getting the wrong person, in
mhm,
general, but also they're not getting the best me that I can bring to the
mm,
table. And so, ultimately, I understand that not everybody is going to want to do business with me or maybe even like me, and that's okay. But really coming at it from that position of altruism and vulnerability. And one of the things that I've had I've had several people say over the years is I'm not afraid to say that I don't know something.
mm,
If someone asks me a question and I legitimately don't know the answer, then I'm not going to just make something up to seem smart. I'm just gonna say, hey, I don't know the answer. I'll try and get you
Mhm.
the right answer.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that I've heard this from people from time to time, that that's really refreshing, that, because most of the time if you ask somebody something and they don't know, they're scared, uh, that, scared to admit that they don't know something. And,
Yeah.
I know I don't know everything. So
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I can probably find somebody who knows. So,
Yeah.
so that's great.
That reminds me, my first job right out of college, my boss, after like 6 months on the job, my boss is like, they really like you because you're educated enough that when you don't know the exact answer to something, you can pull enough stuff out of your ass that you sound like you actually know what's going on. I'm like, at the time I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I have a
Right.
future in this company. But looking back now, 7 years later, I'm like, that was not, that's very sleazy, especially I was in sales at the time. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think having access to knowledge is great. You don't have to know everything or have everything in your head if you just have the ability to put the right people on the job, or
Mhm.
to access the right, you know, right
Yeah.
information. And this is in this day and age, I mean, we're all carrying around kind of all of the information that we could ever want in our pockets. And so, you know, I I think that there's a desire for immediacy, but certainly, I would rather be correct than fast, I think, at this
Yeah.
point.
That is true. So what do you see is the most common mistake that marketers focus on or do?
The most common mistake of marketers. That's a really good question. I think that there are quite a few mistakes that get made, when marketing, and one is obfuscating the reality of the situation, like over promising, both from an advertising standpoint, as well as from a client relations standpoint. I think that, some of the things that we hear when people are very frustrated with their current marketing firms is that they were sold a bill of goods that they weren't delivered.
Mm,
So I think that that's a fairly common mistake that does get made. Is marketers, come in and promise the world, and then don't that they're not able to deliver on, as opposed to, stepping back and creating solutions that are
mm,
they're going to function, and that can actually deliver on those
mhm.
expected results.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you because I always see two kinds of not just marketers but like business people in general. One that's either super focused on the money and the other one that's forget the strategy. It's all about the spiritual stuff. So how do you find the right
Right.
balance between the two?
Well, how we've helped find that balance for us is really leading with authenticity and leading with altruism, and really trying to come at this from the perspective of, we want to help people out.
Mm,
And when you help people out, and you're legitimately interested in their well-being, and where they're trying to go and how you can help get them there, the money tends to follow. And certainly, you know everybody goes through times where you don't maybe necessarily know exactly where your next job is coming from. But ultimately, if from my perspective and my experience, if I stay focused on serving, then good things tend to happen.
mm,
And so if I'm less concerned about, how's this gonna turn out financially, and more concerned about, can I legitimately help this person out, and get them where they want to go. um, I don't think I've ever, well, I've rarely gotten a a job. I've never gotten a job from just, a cold call kind of thing.
mm,
It's always through relationships, and relationships are built on trust and understanding. And so, I've managed to build those relationships both in my current business and then in past job type experiences, by really trying to, trying to leverage those relationships. And so, if you're a shady person, you're not going to get,
Mm.
people aren't going to refer you. Um, so yeah, so
Yeah.
I guess that's where I'd come
Yeah.
from on that.
Yeah, that's good though, that you mentioned that, because in my career, both marketing and sales back in the day, um, people expect so much from cold calls. They expect to really close it from cold calls. I'm like, no. From what I've learned is that cold calls is supposed to get you that meeting, the
Sure.
first time,
Yeah.
the first connection. So that's a, and then not that long ago, more like 2 days ago, someone's like really mad and disappointing because she ran ads and did not make any sale off the ads. I'm like, okay, I
Right.
think we gotta there's something that we gotta adjust there, the minds. There's something about that we gotta adjust. And yeah, so I'm not gonna get into it. It's anyway,
Yeah.
so let's get imaginative here for a bit. So say we have a magic wand, and whatever you say right now, all new marketers all over the world will hear it. It'll actually register, and and they'll actually start applying it. What would be your advice to them?
Well, we've touched on this already, and I think
Mm,
it's serve, be authentic, be vulnerable, um, and have your client's best interests in mind. Build
mm,
relationships. Don't try to just make sales. And that's something that we really come at. The way that we approach our clients marketing is really to just help them build relationships, and thinking about how, even if you're just selling a product, ultimately you have to convince the people who are interested in buying that product that you're legitimate, and
mm,
you're trying to help solve their needs, and it's all relationships.
yeah.
People really don't buy from companies, they buy from other people.
Mm,
And so it's all B2C, or P2P, actually, person to
mhm,
person.
yeah.
And so if you can really develop that kind of mindset, I think that things would go a long way.
Yeah. This just made me think of something. Made me think of this. What has been your biggest business blunder so far, and
Well, there's
what you've
certainly
learned
been a
from it as well?
bunch of them. I think the mistakes are where magic happens. I mean, we don't grow by hitting home runs every time at bat.
Mm,
Um, and so I guess I don't necessarily consider things blunder. I mean, we've certainly spent a lot of money on chasing things,
mm,
and on what at the time seemed like great opportunities and great investments, that didn't pan out. So I think that I guess this is a good example, and we invested five figures plus, or well, not five, mid five figures in a business at one point that was wanting to transition, and we didn't think it through. we,
mm,
we were kind of chasing the idea of quick wins,
mm,
and we ended up making a little bit of money back, but we certainly didn't cover that investment in that particular case. So
mm,
I would say, if I had one thing to take back, that one would be on the list for sure. Um, but yeah, I think that if I had some advice, it would be to always take a couple days to think about investments,
mm,
to really just sleep on them, and consider whether or not this sounds too good to be true,
mm.
because when it sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
That's awesome. Well, Stu, thank you so much. And first things first, I gotta acknowledge you for the stand that you are, for serving for service, the stand for integrity, authenticity, and being vulnerable and setting a good example for marketers out there. So thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, what's the best way that we could connect with you?
I can be found at my personal LinkedIn account, which is linkedin.com stu/in/SSWINEFORD, or you can always just chase me down at relishstudio.com.
Mm-hmm.
My email is just stu at relishstudio.com. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we'll have all that in the show notes. Yeah, so thank you for your time. We appreciate you. And yeah, and yeah.
Well, thank you for having me
Yeah.
on. I really appreciate it. It's good to meet you.